Hi, welcome. Today we are going to be making pinwheel cookies. Before any lab, you should clean your work area, tie back your hair, and then wash your hands. And all of that has already been done. You then want to do your mise en place and assemble your ingredients and then start your pre-measuring. So that's where we will be today. Alright, so for this recipe is going to take you 3 days to complete. Not 3 full days, but a part of 3 days. So I will be breaking down this demo into day 1, day 2, and day 3. So day 1 is simply making your dough. And you will be making 2 different kinds, a vanilla white colored dough and a chocolate dough. Alright, so let's get started. You need 1.5 sticks of butter, which is equal to 3/4 cup of butter. Alright, so I will go ahead. Now, when you make this in lab, you will be using a mix master. However, today I will be using a hand mixer so that we can better lift up the bowl to show you what everything looks like. No garbage, oh, there it is. Now, the softer the butter, the easier your recipe is going to go. So with butter this soft, you could actually use a wooden spoon to mix, but this dough tends to be a little drier than traditional cookie dough, so for that reason we are sticking with the mix master. Now, we are supposed to cream this until it's smooth. So, I have a hand mixer here. And this should only take a second because the butter is already so soft. Okay? Now we're going to stir in the sugar and vanilla. Now, the purpose of butter in our recipes is to add flavor, and it makes it tender. It'll be what makes your cookies nice and soft. Alright? Next, we're adding powdered sugar. Most cookie recipes call for regular granulated sugar. However, powdered sugar is going to make it a smoother, more cake-like recipe. Alright, so we need 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. Now, we are baking, and when you are baking, measurements are precise. So there's no more guessing what a 1/2 cup looks like. It needs to be exactly a 1/2 cup, because in baking, proportion is critical. So if we have a little too much sugar, that means our cookies could burn too fast. It also means that the dough will be too dry to even roll out. So I will scoop in. I'm going to just tap the cup a little bit. And then you take a straight edge spatula and you go across the top of the measuring cup and you have exactly 1/2 cup. The purpose of vanilla extract, which is the next ingredient we're adding, is for flavor. Okay. And we need 1.5 teaspoons. So again, these are going to be in the smaller spoons, and if you look right on the side, you'll find this one says 1/2, and this one down here says 1. I am going to measure these over a custard cup because getting too much liquid in your cookie dough will make it too liquid. So I'm fine there. I can now pour that into the batter. But this way, if I overflow, which I'll do purposefully here, there we go. The extra just goes there and it didn't go into the batter. It did not go into the batter and ruin it or put too much in there. If any of you have ever tasted vanilla extract, it's very, very bitter. It does not taste nearly as good as it smells. However, when it's mixed with all the other ingredients, it adds some nice flavor to the cookies. We also need to add granulated sugar. And sugar adds sweetness to your cookies, and it also helps them turn brown as it caramelizes in the oven. Alright, so on the regular sugar, we need 1/3 cup. And again, this has to be precise. So these are stamped right on the measuring cup. It might be a little hard to see. You scoop. You take your straight edge right across the top and you have exactly 1/3 cup. So we'll put that in there. Okay. In here we have again the butter, the powdered sugar, the granulated sugar, and the vanilla. And this process is called creaming. It's the method of combining sugars and butter until they're light and fluffy. So that looks good. The next thing our instructions say to do is in a separate bowl, we're going to measure all of the dry ingredients. So the first dry ingredient we need is 1.5 cups of flour. This is all-purpose flour, and I'm going to do a 1/2 cup 3 times. The purpose of flour in our recipe is it provides gluten, which is kind of like a steel bridge. It's the framework for all of our baked products. The fat will adhere to the gluten. Gluten is a protein. And again, a reminder on how to measure flour. You overfill, and then you level with your straight edge spatula. So there's our 1.5 cups of flour. Then we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Salt, again, now this is baking, so it must be measured. We can no longer measure by sight with crucial ingredients. Salt is a flavor enhancer, so this will bring out the vanilla or the chocolate, depending on which dough it is. And then we also need baking powder. Baking powder is a leavening agent, and what that means is like it levitates. It makes the baked products rise. Now, baking powder is basically baking soda with an acid already added to it, so it works all by itself. It doesn't need any other ingredients to activate it. And when it gets wet, it will start producing carbon dioxide, and then when it gets warm, it will continue producing carbon dioxide, and that's what makes your cookies rise. Okay, we're going to mix the dry ingredients together. You can mix them with a fork or a wire whip, whichever you prefer. And now our instructions are to add it in thirds to the cream. So we're going to add a little bit of the flour, 1/3 of it, and then we're going to blend it. Now the reason it's done in thirds is to give the fat in the butter time to adhere to the gluten in the flour. Again, this is a drier dough, so if we add it all at once, it will not get mixed in. We're going to add another 1/3 or 1/2 of what's remaining. As you can see, the dough is getting drier and drier, but if you continue mixing, it will soften up, which is why, again, you're doing this in thirds rather than dumping all of the flour in there at once. And then our final 1/3. Now the mix master bowls are a little bit taller, so you should have less dough flying out at you. I'm going to slightly raise the beaters to clean them and then turn off the mixer. All right, our next job is we're going to take a rubber scraper and we're going to scrape down the sides to make sure it's all clean. Okay, and we're going to get a piece of plastic wrap. And I'm cleaning as I go here, and as well as I don't want to get any of this food on the plastic wrap. And we're going to only take half of the dough out. So this part does not need to be an exact. This is not going to affect anything, but you do want to get close. So I'm going to take my straight edge spatula, slice so it's pretty close to half, and lift out half the dough and plop it on here. Now, according to our directions, we are supposed to shape this into a square that is about a 1/2 inch thick. So you can just use the edges of your hand to get this in a square, and then start flattening till you're about a 1/2 inch thick. Now, if you're unsure of a 1/2 inch, you can, here's our ruler. I knew I had grabbed one. And you can measure it. And we are just a smidge over a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to flatten it a little bit more. Okay. Wrap it up. And then you will label this according to how your teacher with the sticker, and it's this is your vanilla dough. And this will go into the fridge in just a minute. Now with the remaining dough, we are going to add 2 tablespoons of cocoa. Now, cocoa powder by itself tastes horrible. Horrible. There's no sugar, so it's very, very bitter. It's as dark chocolate can be because nothing has been added to it. This gets measured just like all of the other dry ingredients. Kind of tap and level. There we go. So there's 1 tablespoon. And cocoa is going to add a chocolate flavor to your dough, but it will not be bitter because of all the sugar that's in the dough already. That will sweeten up the chocolate. So we'll mix this in. This should only take about 15-20 seconds. Now we're going to do the exact same thing with this dough. We're going to get another piece of plastic wrap, except we don't have to divide this in half. This is our second half of the dough. A rubber scraper will help you clean all the dough out of the bowl. And again, this gets shaped into a square. Hi, welcome back to Pinwheel Cookies. This is day 2 of your Pinwheel Cookies. So you should have 2 squares of dough, your vanilla dough and your chocolate dough. So today we're going to roll out the doughs and form our log. And then tomorrow, when you get to class, you will slice and bake your cookies.